Hello, everybody, and welcome to Johnny Skywatcher Live. Or, I don't even know if that's the name of this stream. So, this is my Sunday stream. I'm Johnny Skywatcher. I like to talk about movies, TV, entertainment, anything else sometimes. So, this is my first stream in a very long time, and I'm a little bit rusty. And actually, before we even get started, let me just turn off this thing because I'm hearing myself and it is very distracting. Okay, there we go. I kind of just have to hope that that my microphone is still working. Trying to not have to glance down at it too much. Trying to I'm actually looking at the wrong camera. Because I was looking at my old webcam. So yes, this is a very easygoing stream. You know, I think most of my live streams are pretty easygoing, and it's just been a long time since I've made time to do this, since I returned to work last year. And yeah, I usually don't do this on Sundays, but I kept not being able to find the time during the week between work and sometimes having to do overtime and then just being tired. So I figured I'd give Sunday a go. So here I am. And because this is a little bit impromptu, I did think a little bit of it on Friday and then sort of really just decided yesterday to do this. I don't have much prepared. Not that, you know, if you watch any of my other live streams or content, people now or in the future, you would realize that I'm usually not very prepared. So that's sort of normal for me. So yes, today I really just came up with 2 topics to talk about. If I'm not really expecting anyone to show up in chat. This is, as I said, very impromptu. I would be a little bit shocked if anybody even showed up. But I'll just say right now, and actually let me put it in the chat. Feel free to suggest topics in chat. Okay. Sorry, it's just... just looking at things on my screen. And so we have the Batman, which came out, actually, it's going into its second weekend. I guess we can look at some of the the estimates for the weekend. It's not... I used to try doing the Monday look at, on Monday stream, looking at the numbers similar to other show I'm obviously inspired by, the Screen Junkies. Dan Murrell, forgot his last name for a second. He does Charting with Dan, which is a show I regularly watch and am obviously inspired by. He obviously goes more in depth, but you know, that's the sort of thing I like talking about. Obviously, you know, I'm very inspired by shows like Screen Junkies and Collider Video, and it's just a little disappointed, I feel, that, you know, those kind of shows aren't as big anymore. Collider Video obviously disappeared, and Screen Junkies is still kind of going, but they've been remote since the pandemic, and even then, before then, they were getting smaller, and you know, Dan Murrell obviously left the channel, and Roth Cornet since then as well. So it's just, you know, they still have honest trailers going on, but it's still not nearly as much. So, you know, obviously I'm very inspired by those channels, as I was saying. And however, the big problem for me has always been that I'm just one person and I don't really know anyone. So yeah. What was I saying? Obviously very unprepared. Okay, so let's dive into it. So the Batman came out. First off, because you know, I didn't make a video on it, so I'll just talk about my thoughts on the film before, I guess maybe we'll try diving into what the estimates for weekend 2. It obviously did pretty well. Not, you know, Spider-Man No Way Home numbers, but honestly, who expected that? I quite enjoyed the film. I know, hot take. I like the Batman. I don't necessarily agree with, well, okay, I'm like trying to think a thought and then deciding not to go down there. So the Batman, there's a lot of the Batman in the Batman, as many people have been saying, and it's sort of I feel like the only real dividing point in the film, or Robert Pattinson's take on Bruce Wayne, is whether you like that or not, that he's really just the Batman. You know, there's scenes I remember watching in the movie where, you know, he's, especially that scene where, I'll go into spoilers because it's been out a little bit, and you know, who's watching this anyway? So spoilers, you know, I don't get too in depth. I feel like I don't really talk about spoilers that I feel would really spoil the movie experience, but if you're super sensitive, I do talk about spoilers, small spoilers, openly. So there's a scene where Bruce Wayne goes to Carmine Falcone, and he's Bruce Wayne, but like I remember thinking about his like physicality, the way he's like, he looks, or the way he's holding himself. He's still the Batman. He's still Batman even when he's Bruce Wayne. And I feel like that's really the big dividing point, that if you really prefer the classic Bruce Wayne that pretends to be a playboy, and then, you know, and then he puts on the mask and is Batman, and then he maybe has a third real Bruce Wayne identity that you don't really see that much, yeah, you might not like this take on Bruce Wayne as much. But I still feel like it's an interesting take. I would prefer, obviously, in a sequel to see more of a Bruce Wayne character than just what we got in this movie, but I felt like it worked. It worked for this movie, especially since it does kind of, the Riddler does go into making the point that he felt like he was really just himself once he put on the mask. Before then, that was the mask, and when he put on the physical mask, he really became who he was, and that is obviously a reflection of Batman. So obviously I liked it. It's a dark film, not really just in the level of violence and the themes, but like just lighting dark, very stylistic. I feel like in the lighting, not so much obviously in the world of Gotham. It's not like as stylized as Tim Burton's Batman, and I've heard comparisons obviously to Nolan's trilogy. I feel like, to me, Nolan's Gotham always felt very, I don't know, to me I always thought like Chicago. I didn't grow up in New York City, but that's always what came to me, and I felt like that's what I heard, even though recently I've heard more people compare it to New York City. The Robert Pattinson Gotham is obviously very influenced by sort of that 70s New York, especially the subway, that 70s 80s grimy graffiti everywhere on the subway. You see those pictures of like 70s 80s New York City, and that's what really comes to mind. And it's sort of similar, I feel like, to the Joker in that way. It's like, but it's not specifically set in the past, but it doesn't have technology in such a way that, or that sort of, it's obviously not like modern New York City, which I feel like is really the big difference between the Nolan trilogy and, I'm thinking of the director's name, Matt Reeves, the Batman, is, you know, the Gotham in the Nolan trilogy sort of had this dark underside, and I just realized I'm still looking at the wrong webcam. Let me put that away. I'm not constantly looking to the side and not directly at it. Nolan's trilogy had this sort of dark underside to the Gotham, but then also on the top side, it was kind of clean. You didn't see as much of it, obviously, but you did kind of get this idea of sort of this clean upper side. And that's one thing I don't think you get as much in this movie, is that sort of look at the upper side of Gotham, especially because you get so little of Bruce Wayne in this movie. You get a little bit of seeing that society, especially with the funeral scene a little bit, but not as much. But there are parts in the film that I feel like, especially seeing location of like such as Gotham Square, where I thought that was neat, where especially because you see that like several times through the movie, and it really helps sort of cement the idea of this place being a real place, not just like a setting, but like a place where people live and that people would actually want to go to. Because I feel like even though Nolan's Gotham is sort of tries to be more realistic than any of the other Gothams that came before it, why do people live there? It's not like you're either rich and live in like a huge skyscraper, or it's just you're living underneath the city in the sewers, I feel like, with those movies. And with this movie, I feel like you saw, even though it felt like the city was going through hard times, you had these locations and things that made it seem like, you know, I could see tourists going there, like Gotham Square, obviously, you know, very similar to Times Square. And then you had the sort of stadium that they had. The one thing I would say about this film, I did feel like when I got to the part where the chase sequence with the Penguin, I felt like it never stops raining in Gotham. And maybe not all of it, maybe it didn't need to be raining all the time. Though I feel like in an indirect way, spoiling the end of the film, when I don't know if that kind of plays into the idea of the city flooding later on. That sort of helps if it's like a rainy season and sort of I don't even know if that's supposed to be the ocean or a lake that's flooding in, because if it's a lake, maybe you could say like it's the rainy season, so you know the tide is higher up than it usually would be, and so it's easier for Gotham to flood. Obviously that's not something that's talked about in the movie, and I feel like I say obviously too much, but moving on. That's not something that's talked about in the movie, but I think it's maybe one of the things they thought about. Or also, it's very stylistic, you know, having the heavy rain. I just remember thinking during the movie, it's like, it's just always raining, and not just raining, always heavy rain. Now, that's a common thing in movies, because if you just have it lightly raining, if you film just lightly rain, you won't even really see it. It just looks more like a light mist than anything. And so to really get that effect of like it raining on film, you usually have it's either not raining at all, or it's like just heavily raining, pouring rain all the time. So talking about like the portrayal of the characters, as I mentioned, you don't see much Bruce Wayne, but I really like the Batman in this. And yeah, I felt like his portrayal was pretty spot on with the Batman. And other characters, the Penguin, it's just weird seeing oh, can I get his name right? Colin Farrell? Is that right? I'm always bad with names. It's just weird seeing him like with all how do they even do that with like make him look like the Penguin. If you've seen the actor, you know what I'm talking about, and it's like it's sort of crazy that they did that. Why would you want to even do that? Like I don't know how many hours that had to take to put on those like layers of prosthetics and things. Prosthetics, I don't think that's the right word. And yeah, that's just sort of crazy, but the portrayal's good. I like it. He's a great part. Commissioner Jim, he's not commissioner in this movie, but Jim Gordon is also very well played. I can't think of the actor's name, but he's always great. He has a great voice for that, and he plays off very well with Batman. And this is sort of, as many people have said, the first real Batman movie where we get a real detective story. You know, he's actually being, well, he's not really the world's greatest detective. It's hard to write a detective story, but he's actually being a detective rather than just going out and beating criminals, as he's usually portrayed in these movies. And also talking about characters, we can't forget about the Riddler or the Catwoman. Starting with the Riddler, it's a different take on Riddler, very serial killer type, not the funny making Riddlers dancing around Jim Carrey from Batman Forever. And I feel like this idea has been around since The Dark Knight came out. You know, The Dark Knight came out, and I remember in forums online, people were talking and speculating about the next movie, and a lot of people wanted the Riddler. You know, and this exact same idea was what people were thinking of back in when was that? 2008, 2009, I want to say. Yeah, this is what people were thinking of. Not in this exact version, obviously, but this idea of the Riddler working as a serial killer. And I think it works for this movie. And it's very effective. Yeah, I thought it was very effectively done. I liked the actor. I can't think of his name, obviously, because I don't have anything in front of me. You know, let me look up The Batman IMDb. Actually, not The Batman IMDb. Actually, I don't like IMDb anymore. It's kind of annoying. Batman cast. So yeah, I was right about Colin Farrell and Paul Dano. I've seen him in some other things, and I felt like he did a really great job in this movie. And I also got to mention Andy Serkis did a very good job as Alfred Pennyworth. Very small role in this movie. I felt like that was okay, especially since this was a year 2 take on the Batman character. It sort of felt like we didn't need to go over everything, every aspect of the character. You know, we all know about these Alfred Bruce Wayne relationship. We don't need to really go into it too much, but I think in the small part that he had, he did really well. And talking about Catwoman, Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, I liked the take on the character. Everything was, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a lot of Catwoman to compare it to. I definitely like this portrayal of Catwoman better than the Dark Knight Rises in a lot of aspects, especially in the fact that there's more between her and Batman than we got in that movie. And I don't think I've seen Zoe Kravitz in anything else, or I just don't really recognize her, but I think she did a pretty good job. And I like the way they kind of tied her into the story and had her working with and then sometimes against with Batman, and it sort of makes her that sort of semi-antagonistic character, but not completely. And all of that worked pretty well for me. Okay, let me just check. Oh, I'm getting like, I haven't been looking. I can't talk. I haven't been looking too much at chat, but let me just repeat this thing, because I wonder if you join chat. I mean, if you join the stream, do you see like previous chats? I don't think you do. I don't think anybody's in the stream, but let me just keep doing this just in case. You never know, right? Okay, moving on. Moving on. Should I use visuals? What do you think? Let me see. If I go to... okay, now I can't find the window I'm looking for. It would help if I could find it. Okay, there it is. You know what? Let's try this visual. Okay, so let's move to talking about Turning Red. And now I'm not like centering the camera. Let me adjust that 1 second. I know I'm looking down. It looks terrible, but as I said, it's been a while since I've done this. So I'm a little rusty in spots. And let's face it, was never a huge expert when it came to streaming. Okay. So Turning Red just came out this weekend, and it is stupidly only available on Disney Plus, except I'm a little irritated myself that I didn't check. It is in select cities, I think, in the US. Very, very select theaters. In New York City, I checked in AMC Empire 25. I saw that they do have showings of this movie. At least that's what it says on the website. Could always be wrong. A little sad I didn't go, but I did watch this on Friday on Disney Plus, and I thought it was thoroughly enjoyable. In terms of Pixar films, I do put it in the upper half, I'll say. And yeah, I'm still haven't had a huge amount of time to think about this film, but shoot, trying to click things and nothing's happening because I'm pressing the wrong keys. Anyway, it's like after 20 minutes, I start losing myself into like, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. So Turning Red came out. What did I think about it? So I really enjoyed it. I have to say, I thought it was, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but quite enjoyable. Compared to other Pixar films, I don't know. I don't like doing whole comparison things. In terms of what I've heard about it from other people, I feel like people's opinions on this movie are just going to naturally be somewhat lower because it's not a theater experience. And I feel like that's been the case for like the last two Pixar films, because I've heard people say, oh, well, you know, it was okay, but, you know, I can see why they put this on streaming because it didn't feel like a real theatrical Pixar movie. And I feel like part of that is just being influenced by the fact that you feel like it's a streaming movie because you're watching it on streaming for the first time, you know, and there isn't that theatrical experience. And the other thing is, I know that there was a review that got stirred up a little bit of controversy. I don't know how much actual controversy, if anybody really cared, or if it was just people on the internet getting mad about things again. But it was over a review where the person said, and it was just like a short Twitter review. They said it was I can't speak. Let me just pull it up. Unapologetically horny. Let me see. Let me see if I can find it. Turning Red review. Because apparently this got people all mad because, you know, how dare you refer to a under 18-year-old person as having any thoughts or desires. That is not allowed. You know, that sorts of feelings only occurs directly on your 18th birthday. Also, I think most people just don't seem to realize that this movie is starring, I think, a 13-year-old. And she says 13-year-old at some point. She's either 13 or about to turn 13. So maybe slight tween, but mostly teenager at this point. And yes, after watching this movie and it's, seeing it, yes, this it might make some people feel uncomfortable, but this movie is very much about a young girl sort of discovering sexual feelings for things and just growing up in general. I mean, that's not it. There's more to it than just that, but that is part of it. And I feel like Americans can be very prudish when it comes to things like that. Any sexuality when it comes to girls. And so I feel like that's the only reason for this sort of small controversy around the film. And the other thing I would say, I know I've seen some people talk about whether this movie is, whether they're able to relate to it, as a white guy. As a white guy, I felt like there's still plenty of things to relate to in this movie. Obviously I don't necessarily have the same relate to it in the same way as someone who grew up in a very similar situation would, but obviously there's timeless aspects to it as well. Adolescence in general, everybody went through adolescence, whether it was as bad as this or you had a weird parent relationship, as she sort of does in this film with her mother. It's a little bit too much, and she doesn't have her own life at the beginning, and that's sort of part of the conflict in the movie. Whether or not you had that or not, everybody went through adolescence, and everybody has some sort of relationship with a parent or guardian figure. And I feel like that's the aspects that anybody can relate to. You don't have to be Asian to relate to this. And there's just sort of aspects I feel like are just universal like that. You pretty much, it's hard to make a movie that's only relatable to one group of people, because if it's about a human being, feeling any sort of human emotions, that's relatable. It's only like if a movie's really badly done and there's no real human emotion or any real human struggle that the character is going through, that it's hard to relate to. An apple falls from a tree and rolls down the hill and then gets crushed by a car. That's a story. It's not necessarily a very interesting story. Not very relatable because it's about an apple. But still, that counts as a story. Something happened and there wasn't really a lot of struggle, but yeah, something happened. Anyway, that's we're getting, well, I was thinking of doing an hour stream, but now it's like half hour, and I already talked about most of what I had to say about Turning Red. And let me just post that again. So yeah, those are the two main topics I had to talk about. And at some point in the future, hopefully, when I can get, if I can ever get people to watch this, it'd be nice to take suggestions from chat. Let me see what else is going on. I got too many windows open right now, and I feel like I can't tell what is going on half the time. If I can see where I am. Okay. Let me just take a quick look around Deadline and see if there's any movie news that I missed. Well, that happened during the week that I had some thoughts about. And this should just take a second. Or maybe I should just log off there. And it's been half an hour, like I said, though, I'll wrap up, I guess. I haven't been making videos for a while, and so this is sort of my new attempt at it. I was initially thinking of doing it on a new channel, because what I found in the past when I tried to do live videos like this on the channel and post videos similar to what I see other content creators do, what I see is I get not a lot of views on most of my videos. You know, a lot of times I'll get just tens of views, less than 100. But then if I start posting like a live stream every now and again, and even if I like, you know, unlist it and then post it as a full video or chop it up and post it as videos, I would still see my view count go from like tens to like less than 10. You know, I could get before 10, 20, you know, maybe 30, and then it'd be like just single digits. So my plan in the future, I wasn't able to implement it today, is I'm going to try to, what I've seen some content creators do, is have a second channel for just the live streams. And the reason I do live streams is because if I don't just have that sort of motivation to actually go and film, I won't do it. It's just a thing where, like, if I'm live, it actually gives me the sort of motivation that I got to sit down and actually, because I set a time and everything, you know, I got to actually sit down and actually do it, and I don't have time to convince myself not to. So, and then what happens a lot of times is I eventually get into the, even after doing it for a month or multiple months, I get into a headspace where I miss one and then miss a second one, and then I kind of just rolls from there. But right now I'm going to start, try doing this on Sundays. That's the current schedule. Let me know what you think about that. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm going to change everything for you if you disagree with that, but Sundays I think are a good time. I'll start like at 30 minutes, around 30 minutes for now. You know, I'm not used to talking this much, even because now my voice is starting to hurt. So yeah, I think around 30 minutes would be fine. And I totally lost my train of thought. That's okay though. Thank you for watching if you're watching now, or, you know, thank you in the future if you're just watching in the future. And feel free. Let me just. I think I have my nope. No. Feel free to follow me on social media at Jay Skywatcher, where you can also send me any topics. There's like a bird flying in the window. I keep looking at it. Feel free to send me any topics or anything you might want me to talk about. And the YouTube channel is Johnny Skywatcher. In the future, there might be a different YouTube channel where these live streams go to, and then I'll send the full video or parts of the video to this channel. You know, I'm still working on it. And let me know what you thought about Turning Red and the Batman in the comments below. And I will just looking for some, and I will see you in the probably next Sunday. Bye. Let's try this.